The first thing people noticed about him that morning was how composed he looked. Dark suit, proper tie, a small, carefully wrapped box in his hand. He had arrived early, earlier than most guests, because being late would have given them something else to misunderstand. He stood near the entrance of the hall while decorators adjusted white lilies and the photographer tested lighting. His mother passed him twice without stopping. The first time she was directing the florist. The second time she was rehearsing smiles with the bride's friends. He told himself it was normal. Weddings are chaos. His father eventually approached, not to greet him, but to ask if he could check whether the sound technician had arrived. No eye contact. No, you look nice. Just logistics. He nodded and went. By the time the ceremony began, he had already fixed 2 small problems no one knew about. A seating misprint. A delayed microphone setup. Quiet things. Invisible things. When his sister stepped onto the aisle, she looked radiant and distant at the same time. He felt something in his chest shift. Not jealousy, not resentment. Something older. Something that had been accumulating for years. After the vows, during the controlled rush of hugs and photographs, he stepped forward. "Congratulations," he said gently. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't reach for her hands. He didn't try to pull her into an embrace. Just a word. Calm. Clean. She heard him. He knew she heard him. But her eyes slid past him toward someone else. She adjusted her bouquet and turned her body slightly, just enough to close the space. The photographer called her name. She smiled brightly for the camera. He stood there for half a second too long. Then he stepped aside. It wasn't cruelty in her face. It was avoidance. The kind people use when they've decided your presence complicates their narrative. He moved toward the back of the hall, telling himself again that weddings distort people. That stress rearranges priorities. That this wasn't personal. But then he heard it. 2 cousins near the dessert table. She didn't want drama today. Yeah, especially not with him here. You know how he is. How he is. He knew what that meant. 3 years ago, he had refused to co-sign a business loan their father pressured him into. He had asked questions. He had suggested legal review. He had said no. The business failed anyway. And somehow, his refusal had become disloyalty. He represented dissent in a family that preferred performance. He walked outside for air. That's when the venue coordinator approached him. "Are you Mr. Cameron?" He nodded. "There's a small issue with the vendor authorization for the reception lighting and live stream. The original deposit was processed under your name during the planning phase. We need your signature to release the final service block. Otherwise, we'll have to reduce coverage." He blinked. Months ago, when planning first started, his sister had asked him to help negotiate contracts. He had done it professionally, carefully. His name was on several provisional documents because he understood the clauses. He hadn't thought about it since. "If we don't get your authorization within the hour," she continued, "we'll have to downgrade the setup." He could see the reception hall through the glass doors. Guests laughing. Champagne moving from tray to tray. His sister posing under chandeliers she hadn't technically secured yet. He understood the leverage instantly. He could say no. He could delay. He could request a conversation first. He could force acknowledgement. For a moment, just a moment, he imagined the announcement. The whisper spreading through the room. The visible panic. The reversal. Instead, he asked for the clipboard. He reviewed the document carefully. Corrected one minor fee discrepancy. Signed. "Please proceed," he said. Relief washed over the coordinator's face. "Thank you, sir." He handed back the pen. Then he walked inside, placed his wrapped gift quietly on the designated table, and left the hall without telling anyone. No confrontation. No message. Just departure. An hour later, during the formal reception lineup, someone noticed. They needed him for a family portrait tied to a foundation donor, an introduction he had facilitated months earlier. The donor's representative had flown in, expecting to meet the brother whose professional reputation carried weight in that circle. He wasn't there. Calls started. First his mother, then his father, then his sister. He watched the screen light up while sitting in a small cafe 3 streets away. The boutonniere lay on the table beside his coffee. He didn't answer. More calls. A message from his father. "Where are you? This is important." Another from his mother. "At least pick up." Then his sister's name appeared again. He imagined the reception continuing flawlessly. The lighting perfect. The live stream running smoothly. Guests unaware of the fragile administrative thread that had almost unraveled it. They would manage eventually. They always did. But they would also feel it, the absence. The empty space in photographs. The donor asking polite but pointed questions. The realization that the person they treated as optional had, in fact, been structural. He turned off his phone. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just decisively. For years, he had tried to earn acknowledgement through usefulness. Through reliability. Through restraint. Today, he had given them everything they needed. And removed himself from everything they wanted to display. He took a slow sip of coffee and allowed himself a small, private smile, not of triumph, but of clarity. He didn't need to disrupt their celebration to reclaim himself. He only needed to stop standing in rooms where he was tolerated but not welcomed. Outside, distant music drifted faintly through the afternoon air. Inside, he sat alone, composed, no longer asking to be seen.